In this video, I want to talk about PrimeNG theme. PrimeNG comes with 4 prepackaged themes that you can modify. You don't have to modify the entire theme. You modify only the pieces you need. And we're going to focus on styled mode. Styled mode, the architecture here explains that you have your CSS variables and your CSS rules. Your design tokens pull in and create additional variables. It pulls in those CSS variables, but it creates some additional layers of variables. Now, they call it tokens, and you got a primitive, which is basically your color, and there's some very minimal border radius adjustments. But then you've got your semantic, which is your primary color and your surface color. But those change based on light and dark theme. Then your component. So the component tokens get into styling a particular token, such as an accordion or a button or a radio button, any type of component like that. Let's get into how do you change a PrimeNG theme. Let's begin by looking at the config, the app config here. So in the app config, you'll note that I'm pulling in a PRB0 preset. I was pulling in another theme, but now I've changed it, so I've modified all my themes, and I can select multiple themes now. But let me show you how this is done. So I go into PRB0 reset, and in here, all this does is it pulls in these other presets, and there's a defined preset method that is provided by PrimeNG. It takes multiple parameters. The first parameter is always your base theme that you want to start with. Then you add the other pieces that you want. So primitive, I've got primitive here where I've added brown, Soho, Viva, Ocean, Beach, and Silver. And if I go back here and look at semantic, semantic has some changes here. So you see my content here, border radius using large. And if I scroll down, you'll see I'm using different surface colors than what was defined by PrimeNG. But I'm only changing just a few pieces here. I don't have to change everything. I did a video previously on version 18 where I was explaining you had to download all this stuff and then you had to go in and modify it. You don't really have to download it anymore because I'll show you a way that you can get it so you can look at it to see what it is. But in the meantime, this is all you need to do. So primitive, semantic, and then this part right here. So this is just components that I have specific overrides for. So the accordion preset. So in a short, I did a video where I changed it right here. I found a better way of doing it using the semantic and the primitive. So we'll get into that in just a moment here. And also actually overriding it directly with SAS. So if we go back into here, so here's my button preset. So I'm only changing the color scheme for the button here, and this is in the light and the dark. You want to change as needed. Now notice here, this one, I'm changing the raise shadow. I'm not changing it here. My secondary, I'm only changing the surface color. Here, I've got it at 950. Here, I've got it at 50. These other pieces, I've not changed down here. So you change only the pieces that you want. Let's go back here. Here's data preset. Notice I'm only changing color scheme, mega menu preset. So horizontal orientation, I had to do some modification to get it to work the way I needed it. And that's all I had to do there. Message preset. All I did here was change this to my message colors that I want. And here, timeline. So this is my padding, my horizontal and my vertical. Event content. That's all I changed there. And tooltip, just maximum width of 25. And that's at the root. So how do I find all this? Well, first of all, I have to be configured. And what I'm doing here is I've got my PRB0 preset. I've got 1 and 2 as well. So if you look here, here's my themes. I've got 0, 1, and 2. And then I've got all my colors. I don't need all these colors, but I brought them in here just to help me with what I'm trying to do with the program here. And that is where my palette page that's primarily where they're used, but it also allows me to look at what the colors are. So let me show you how I actually pulled them in. So in here, here's Aura. So if I want to look at what the Aura theme is, I would just uncomment that and import the Aura theme from PrimeNG. Now if I go up here and look at my imports, there's Prime UIX themes Aura, and so it's getting it from there, and that's Aura. Let's comment these other pieces out for now, and let's just run this. Now let's go over now and look at it on the web. So if we go here, I go to inspect, go to my console, and if I do a refresh, here's my Aura theme. I think it's Aurora, but I'm calling it Aura. So anyway, in here, you see your components, your primitive, and notice in primitive, it has colors, but you've also got border radius here. So border radius is included there. Now, if we go to look at somatic, somatic has general things. Think of this as a general override on your components. So here's primary color, and if we go into color scheme, this is where you're going to see there's primary again. So this primary is different from the primary down here. This is just your colors. This is actually, if you'll notice, it's primary dot 200. Down here, it's the same as saying emerald dot 200, but they're saying primary 200. So you're using primary. So whatever you have set up here color-wise is what's going to be used here. So if I had green here or red, that primary dot 200 would be the red or the green 200. So keep that in mind. And then here's now under primary, it has contrast color. It's got a surface color there. And then primary, the hover color. Under hover color, it's got the primary 300. So that's this one here, emerald 300. So that'll give you an idea of how that works. And now your surface color, here it's got the whole grouping. In this case, for dark, it's using the zinc. So look at the light, and the surface color here is slate. So this is pulling in the actual color, and notice it's got pound FF on both of these as the 0. That is white. So this gives you the ability to go from really dark to really light on both of them. So you got dark theme and light theme. So that's on your color scheme. Content, this is general border radius. So if you see content dot border radius or content border radius elsewhere, it's referring to this right here. So that's how that works. I don't see this focus ring very often, but it's usually the dotted line where there's a focus if it's showing, and that's where it gets its information from. Form field. So if you have any form fields you need to change or modify, here's large, small, here's padding, focus ring. So it has a focus ring which overrides this focus ring. Here's your icon size. It's 1 rem. You can change that to whatever you want. You can increase or decrease your icon size. Here's list. Your list have 2 pixels gap. So these are things you can change, and you change it by making the modifications in the presets like I was showing you. Let's go back and look at the code again now that we've looked at that. The reason I'm using Aura here is that is what I'm based off of. So here's my theme and here's Aura. So that tells me that's with any of my modifications. So if I want to go and look at my modifications, I comment that out. Here's Laura, Nora. So I can pull all these in if I wanted to. Now this one, let's go down here and we're going to look at my PRB 0 primitive. So I'm going to save that, and let's go back over to the web and let's see what we've got there. Let's refresh, and here's my primitive showing, and here's all my colors. I've added some colors that aren't there in the normal one. Silver is one I just added, and I'm going to show you how to add a color in there. So let's do that right now. Let's go back. Well, first of all, let's get a color. Gold color code, and let's see what that is. So the code is EFBF0F. That's what they're calling for there. Let's copy that, and let's go back over here. Before I go there, I'm going to change it here. Generate a palette. So here's my gold color palette. I'm going to copy this, copy that. Let's go back over to the code and let's go into our colors. And I don't think I have a gold in there. So let's create a new one. We're going to call this gold, paste that in there. Now we're going to go to our primitive and we're going to copy in gold. All right. So we have gold now added. That was just added. And that should be all we have to do to pull that in because I'm including primitive. Here's primitive, and that's got the gold in it there. All right, let's go back to the web now. And let's see if we have gold in here. And here is gold. So now gold is available. Now I don't have it in here. I'll show you how I add that in there now. So it's now available for me to use. Let's go back into the code and I'm going to go up into the core. It's in the header, it's in the color picker. So let's add in gold here. There is gold. This is for my highlight ring. So the way this works is the ampersand appends to this right here, whatever is right in front of it. Here's another ampersand, and that's going to append onto that. So it says PRB color palette item and then dot this and then dash gold in this case. So now we're going to go over here and we're going to add there's silver. So silver is a surface color. I want to put this into the gold is close to yellow. So I'm going to duplicate that. That color palette that I changed here, that was right here. And this should add gold. Save that. And let's go back over and see if we have gold now. Yellow. And there's gold. It's kind of hard to see, but that's gold right there. And there's yellow. So it's that easy to put in a new color in my application. Now in my demo where I've got the color palette, don't know if it's so I need to modify this to add gold. Here's amber and yellow. Need to add gold in there. You get the idea. You see how easy it is to add a primitive. Well, let's take a look at how I change this. So this is silver, and I've overridden it by doing CSS in this case. I don't recommend doing this in CSS, but in this case, it was the easiest one for me. So let's look at the public assets and accordion. So here's my silver. Now, whenever you're doing it in CSS, you're always going to prefix it with -p-silver dash, not a dot, 400. So that'll get the 400 and this will get the 900 on the surface. So this helps me set up that. And how did I get this information here? Let me show you how I got that. Let's go over here and let's do an inspect on this. And if you'll notice up here, all I did is I copied that. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to bring it back over here just to show you. And I'm going to do a paste. And that's how I got that. So that's all I had to do to change that. I don't recommend changing the CSS or SAS in this case as a first resort. This is a last resort. Or if you're more comfortable in this, do it. But I would be hesitant because the other things potentially are going to override this. So just be careful. What PrimeNG has done is they're trying to make it easier for developers who don't do CSS by doing it in the theme presets. So here's my primitive that I got set up. And then here's PRB0. Here's a semantic. Here's a semantic for that one. And I have a semantic for PRB1. And I have a semantic for PRB2. And I'm just changing the pieces that I need in here. So let's go back. Let's go look at the web again. So if I go in here and I go PRB1, 2, you can see the drastic difference between, and I've just changed it in those presets. So preset allows you to do a whole bunch of changes with just one click. Where up here, I'm just changing my primary color. That's all I'm doing, but it's not in a preset. I'd have to save it in a preset. Now, if you wanted to, you could write code to do that, but it's going to be some work. All right, so now let's go back and let's look at some of the components. I'm going to show you how I find the component information now. Let's go back into, let's save some of this stuff. I always reset database because whenever I change my presets. It's going to modify that, and I don't want to save that. That's just for your information. It's up here, and this is where my profile is, and it helps me in some of the demonstration on some of the screens. So that's all that is. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to look at, I'm going to close all that, go down to component here, and here we want to look at the accordion. All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm going to my preset, my defined preset. In this case, it's PRB1. So I'm actually using PRB0, but I want to look at what PRB1 has in it. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to look at the components. And in components, I want to look at accordion, and I'm doing a JSON stringify. So I do undefined 2. You could put null there, but I'm used to doing undefined. So let's save that. Let's go back to our web. And here is so I put a note there to myself so I know that this is not the one I'm running in, but it's PRB1. Now, if you'll notice, PRB1 here has different for the accordion, and that's defined in here. So if we look at the header, I want the background color. Here's silver 50, okay? So you can see I pulled in, instead of using a surface color, I pulled in silver. I just noticed something. This is surface -90, but I got silver .50, and it's working. So if I go here, you'll see it. This is a silver background. So I've got silver. So my CSS is forcing this to be this color when it's expanded. So I could give a different silver color here. So let's go change that and see what happens. Where it says silver 50. And I'm going to try the hyphen because that's what they've got up here. I just want to see what that's going to do. Let's go back into the code, and this is PRB1 and accordion and silver, and I'm going to try 700, which will make it darker. Try the hyphen, so 700. Let's save that. Let's go over to the web, and let's see what we've got now. And if we go in here, and there you can see it's darker because of the 700. And if we do a refresh here, you'll see the silver 700 there. So that's PRB1. That works. All right, let's change the 700 to 300 and see what that does. Let's go back to the code here, change that to 300, save that. Go back to the web. And there it is, brighter. So we change that to 300. Now we're going to go back here. And the background is 300 now. All right, so you notice this is a dimmer color here, and this is a brighter color down here, because this is 300 and this is 500. So that's why there's a difference there. So I hope this helps. Let me know in the comments if you have any further questions. I'll go into a little more if you need it, but I'm hoping this helps. I know some people were having difficulty with the theming, but you have to play with it and experiment. And some of the things I've shown you here will help you with that. I will leave a link to the repository that I'm using in the video here. I will leave a link in the description. I hope that'll help you.